Hi everyone, welcome back to Spratt Stem Academy. Today is SAT Saturday. We're going to be doing some practice test SAT problems from the math section. This section today we're going to be working on is the math no calculator section in the practice test number 10. I got this practice test from College Board. They have about 10 full PDF practice tests. So if you need the link to that, I'll put that in the description. But for now, we're going to be working on questions 1 through 3 in the no calculator section. So let's start with question 1. And I'm also going to kind of talk to you guys about some test kind of like hacks and things to make this easier for yourself, especially because this is a time test. So let's just go ahead and get started. So this question is asking what value of z satisfies the equation above. So the equation is 2z plus 1 equals z. And so they want us to essentially get z by itself and figure out what z equals. Before we actually get to the math, I want to talk to you about a kind of strategy that is really helpful for the math section. In your head or on your paper, it's really helpful to write your goal, or essentially what the question is asking you to find. And when I was taking the SAT and doing my test prep, this really helped me and also helped me to stay focused on what the question was actually asking for. So even if the question is simple like this one, it's still a really important strategy and tool to help you. So basically, if you write down like goal or key question, and then write down what exactly you need to do or look for. So for example, this is asking us what value of z satisfies the equation above. So I'm going to write my goal is to get z by itself. And not only do you kind of visualize like what you need to do, but it's also really good for your brain to start processing what you're doing before you actually start the math. So I'm going to rewrite the equation. And in order to get z by itself, we just have to do a simple algebraic manipulation of this equation. So first we want this z to be over here. So we just subtract it. And that's going to be 0. So that means we have to write 2z minus z plus 1. And now that the z has been subtracted from here, there is no longer a z there. It's just equals 0. So we now have 2z minus z plus 1. And we can go ahead and simplify this a little bit. Let's simplify the 2z minus z to just be z. So now we have z plus 1 equals 0. And we're not quite finished yet because z is not by itself. Let's just get rid of this 1 by subtracting it on this side to give us 0 to cancel it out. And then we also have to subtract it on this side. So we'll get negative 1 here, which means that z equals negative 1. And so now we know what z equals. It's by itself, which means that the answer choice that we need is B, because B, negative 1, satisfies the equation. So that's the answer to number 1. For number 2, let's read the problem, because when they give you word problems like this, they like to give you lots of information, and it can be a little overwhelming if you don't pay attention. So let's read the problem and highlight key information. A television with a price of $300, so I'm going to highlight price of $300, is to be purchased with an initial payment of $60. I really think initial payment is an important key statement here, so I'm going to highlight that as well. And weekly payments of $30. Weekly payments also sounds important. Which of the following equations can be used to find the number of weekly payments, W, required to complete the purchase, assuming there are no taxes and fees? So for this question, we have 3 pieces of information, but first let's write down our goal. They want to know an equation that can help us find the number of weekly payments. And essentially, this is going to be a linear equation, or if you're familiar with y equals mx plus b, it's going to be this format equation. And the reason I know this is because we're given 3 pieces of information that satisfy what this equation has. So before we get into that, let's review the y equals mx plus b equation. M is your slope, which is also known as your rate. B is a y-intercept. but it can also be known as an initial or starting point. So I'm going to write starting point. X is just going to be some variable, but in our case, it's going to be our W, our number of weekly payments. That's going to be our X. And our Y normally means a total. And if you go back to the word problem, we do in fact have something that talks about a total, which is price of $300. Okay, so now we know what equation we have to put these numbers in. Let's go over each part. We have $300, which is the total price. We have initial payment of $60. So that was the initial pay. And weekly payments of $30. So this weekly payment of $30, when you see that, you should already be thinking that that's something that's going to happen multiple times. So that's going to be some kind of rate, right? But for now, we're just going to write weekly payments. Okay, so we have 3 pieces of information that are really important. And we're going to put these 3 pieces of information into the y equals mx plus b formula. So we know that y means a total, and we have a total here, which is 300. So I'm going to put in 300 equals. M refers to slope or rate of something that is happening over time. And initial pay is not going to be something that happens over time. It's just a payment that we're paying once, right? The thing that's changing over time is how many weekly payments we have to make. So 30 is going to be our slope. X, we're just going to write that as W because that is what we're looking for. That's our variable, such as what they stated in the problem. And then plus, our plus B, our y-intercept, which is our starting or initial point. Keyword being initial because in the problem they stated that we paid $60 initially for the television, which is a big red flag to us that 60 is our y-intercept. And so this would be the equation that would satisfy how we can find the number of weekly payments required to complete our purchase. And so if we look at our answer choices, we can automatically eliminate D and B, and we're now having to choose between A and C. And if you look carefully, A has 30W minus 60, while C has 30W plus 60. Don't let this confuse you. Make sure you choose the correct answer, which is C. 30W plus 60 equals 300. Okay, so we've now completed 1 and 2. Let's go to our last problem, number 3. Okay, so here we're given a graph and we have some reading to do. So let's take our time and just look at the data that we're given. We have a chart here giving us merchandise weight in pounds and shipping charge in a nice little table. And the problem states that the table above shows shipping charges for an online retailer that sells sporting goods. There is a linear relationship. I'm going to highlight linear relationship. Anytime you see linear relationship, automatically think y equals mx plus b and slope. Between the shipping charge and the weight of the merchandise, which function can be used to determine the total shipping charge in dollars for an order with a merchandise weight of X pounds? Okay, so we want to find a function used to determine the total shipping charge. So our goal is to, I'm going to just zoom in here. So essentially we want f of x equals mx plus b. So we want to put data into an equation that we can use, similar to what we did for the previous problem. And if you're not familiar with what f of x is, it is literally just y. It's the same thing as y. So don't let that confuse you. Okay, so before we can make an expression, we have to find a couple of things. Luckily, we don't need to worry about finding f of x because in our expression, it's just f of x. We don't have to plug a number in for that. All we really need to worry about is finding our m, which is our slope, and a b, which is a y-intercept. So our goal is to simply use this table data, and write an expression. Now, how can we do that? We can first use these numbers that we're given to find a slope so that we can start with an equation. Now, how do you find a slope when you're just given some numbers in a table? First, remember that when you're usually given a table, these are just coordinates. So, for example, this piece of data right here in this box, that is just 5, 1694, with 5 being our x and 1694 being a y. Same thing for this second row. That coordinate would be 10, 21, 89. Okay, so these are just coordinate points. Just because they're on a table, you can just look at them as coordinates, which is really important with slope formula. So in order to find a slope when you're just given some coordinates, you need to know the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And if you look at these points that we sort of outlined up here, we can fulfill these variables in the slope formula equation. This 5 is going to be x1. This top right should be y1 because this is our first coordinate, but our second coordinate should be x2, and then 2189 is going to be y2. So now that we sort of labeled each number in our coordinates, we can just plug each number into the slope formula. So our y2 was 2189, our y1 was 1694, and then our x2 was 10, and our x1 was 5. And so now we just subtract that, and that will give us our slope. And so 2189 minus 1694 is going to give you 495 over 5. And if you simplify this, it should give you 0.99. So now we know that our slope is 0.99. And looking at our answer choices, we can eliminate two options, C and D, because they are stating that the slope is 339, which is not correct. So this is just kind of a strategy using common sense, process of elimination, to just get rid of answer solutions or answer choices that just don't make any sense and will waste your time. Okay, so we now know that slope is 0.99, but we still have this b, or y-intercept, to figure out. And the way we figure that out is using another formula, which is called point slope formula, another really important SAT formula. And that formula is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And m is just going to be slope in this case. So in this formula, you just need one of your coordinates. I'm going to use the same one that we used earlier, 5, 16.94. And you're going to need your slope. And then you just plug everything into the equation, except for this y and x. You don't have to plug anything in for that because those are going to be unknown variables. So y minus y1, which is 1694, equals 0.99, which is our slope. X, we leave that alone. X1 is 5. And so we could distribute this all out and have to deal with decimals, but I'm just going to write y minus 6.94, distribute the 0.99 to each number, and 0.99 times 5 is going to be minus 4.95. And you can do the math, bring over this 0.1694 to this side, but if you look at your answer choices, you can already tell that it's not going to be A because A doesn't have a y-intercept. It's stating that the expression is just 0.99x. And if we look here, we can see that that is not correct. So we can cross out A. And the only answer choice we have left is B. F of x equals 0.99x plus 11.99. And we figured this out without doing the rest of this calculation. But if you want to check and write the expression to make sure that it does in fact match, you can do that. So we have 0 equals 0.99x. I'm bringing over the 16.94 so that y is by itself by just adding it over. And minus 4.95 plus 16.94 is in fact 11.99, which is the answer choice we chose above. So those are questions 1 through 3 on the SAT practice test number 10. I hope this helped. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.